Hello, everybody. Welcome again to a new session of Let's Talk About Risk. Today, we're going to continue talking about e-commerce, all the different participants in this business, and how the strategy and risk management has helped them to continue in these difficult times. So, for this matter, we are pleased to have our guest, Pamela Flores. Pamela is an expert in e-commerce, also in transformation and strategy, a business strategy, with over 15 years of experience in different companies in the sector in different parts of the world, like Brazil, the United States, Peru. She has been former general manager for Mercado Libre in Peru, director of operations and co-founder in Linio Peru, and also senior manager in Amazon, based in Seattle, Washington. Pamela is an MBA by the Cox Business School, and also she is an economist, and currently she is consultant, giving advice to different boards and businesses that would like to enter this fascinating world of e-commerce. So in that matter, we're pleased again to introduce Pamela. Pamela, please, for your first words.
Hi, Alfredo. Thank you so much for the invitation. And for this venue, actually, because I was looking at all the other topics you've covered, and I think it's pretty interesting. So thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. So, Pamela, let's start a little bit with the basic about talking about marketplace. If you can give us an introduction, and then perhaps start sharing your experience in the different participants in the market.
Sure. When we talk about e-commerce, there are several ways of how to participate in this new, well, it's not new, in this current channel. And you have the regular build your own website, right? But you also have the opportunity to participate in websites already designed to gather a lot of sellers and at the same time, a lot of demand. So the famous one, Amazon, Alibaba, Tmall, and so on. And so these marketplaces, what they do is they build the platform so a lot of people, a lot of sellers can participate and offer their own products or services. And at the same time, since they have a lot of demand on these sites, they will then attract a lot of customers interested in this variety. If you think about in the real world, you can have your own store, or you can go to the mall when you have a collection of opportunities of different products in even price ranges. So you can find in one place a lot of offers. And that's the same thing in the digital world. And so when we talk about marketplaces, a lot of people say, well, I really want to have my own website, but they don't really understand the missed opportunity when they don't participate in this really good traffic sites.
Would you say that eBay could be the pioneer of this sort of marketplace, or they really don't fit in this category because they were more
they do. They do. There are actually several kinds of marketplaces. Then you have your pure players, right, where you don't participate at all. And then you have transactional ones. You have eBay, where when it's a bidding one, there's a lot of offers. That's the main rule for the marketplace. But the way the process or the players can participate is through bidding, right? That's how eBay was. You can bid and you can wait, and they have offers, and you then talk to the seller of the site. They have the pro players, like Mercado Libre, for example, and they have all these offers, but the marketplace doesn't participate. Then you have the mixed model, where you have an Amazon, where they have the marketplace side, but at the same time, they have their own products. And in fact, there's a whole, especially now, the whole argument that it's not fair because the platform has all the information on what sells, and they can then go by with a huge negotiating power and then bring those products as a white label for their own brand and sell it at really low prices, which is Amazon brands what's happening right now. And all they have all these big issues with the European courts because it's not fair. They have access to information that most others don't have. Then you have your app-based ones, like Rappi, for example, which is a blooming marketplace in Latin America. You have other ones in other parts of the world, and it's only app-based. They don't have a site.
Right.
And in fact, they started as a logistics carrier, right? They offer to transport products, but at the same time, they're a marketplace because they gather all these products on their platforms. They don't direct you to different sites.
Sure.
You have to go to their sites. In fact, they don't allow stores to redirect their products. They have to, customers have to buy it on their site. So you have those. Then you have also the ones that do only international commerce, especially because in a lot of countries, they don't have a lot of offers. So for example, Latin America, you want to have products from the States or Europe or China. And so there are sites that only specialize in comics platforms, meaning you can buy from eBay and I'll make sure I can just send it to you to your house in another country. Right. So there are a variety of products. And I'm just talking about products. And you have also services. You have educational ones like Rihanna, right? Or you have financial ones. You have movies, games, and so on. So marketplaces are going to be any place where there's a collection, a variety of offers, and also a huge traffic of customers who wanted those products.
Right. So talking about the participants, the different participants, for example, we started talking about eBay. Now, Amazon is kind of in the mindset of most of the consumers as a place to go, right? So it seems that talking about a little of strategy and moving and adapting, perhaps eBay, by decision or maybe by the market, they kind of stay in a different section, and Amazon kind of captured that. Then we start looking at Alibaba, that was a sort of a new player, perhaps a little after Amazon, and they capture a big part of the world,
which is a huge market.
Right. They even don't need to come to this side of the world to be huge, but they are doing so based on price competitiveness, right? And then we have players that kind of based on Latin America, like Mercado Libre, no? And Linio, perhaps if I'm right.
It is. It is.
Right. So and I guess these participants as Rappi or
Corner Shop,
yeah, are kind of a product, perhaps of the pandemic, or kind of a as it or no, or they were coming before.
They came before. Most of them started before the pandemic, but they were not very popular because, I mean, should I pay someone to bring me my groceries, or the store is like 3 blocks from here, I'm just gonna go and it's gonna be cheaper. And then the pandemic hit, and there's like no one wants to go out, so I'm gonna actually pay someone. I'm looking for someone to bring me my groceries to my house because I don't want to risk it, right?
Because Amazon had that line of product before, right? They offered the
yes, but they were not popular because you only think of marketplaces of like final products, things I want to make sure they're coming okay, like electronics, books, shoes, and so on. But I don't want someone touching my vegetables, right? I don't know how they're gonna pick my fruit. So those were some things that people didn't want to do, and there was some familiarity, especially because you think about who buys in certain countries, who buys the market, goes to market. It's usually the older mom, right? Or someone who has a routine, or it's something you don't think you buy online. Then afterwards, everything's changed. And so we're talking about huge numbers. I'm going to give you some numbers. I think it's very interesting just to show you how the pandemic, because you've hit that point, how it affected e-commerce in the marketplaces. So we're talking about, we know e-commerce grew because of the pandemic. And in a percentage of how much, you're thinking about 13% of all e-commerce, of all retail was e-commerce. So you think about $100, $13 were coming from e-commerce. And just in the pandemic from 2018 to 2020, that hit to like 18-20% of all consumption was through e-commerce. And we're talking about huge jumps. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you think about how it was growing like 1%, 2%, it was a huge jump in just 2 years.
Yeah, the size of the pie is huge.
It's huge, exactly. And then also retail shrunk because people were not buying. And so that percentage, I mean, in some countries it had 50%, 25%, because that was the only thing that was open. And then if you think about that, e-commerce grew as a percentage of the pie of all retail, right? And then you think about, okay, e-commerce. In e-commerce, you think, well, maybe I shouldn't participate in marketplaces. I want to have my own website because I want to venture it. And that's a missed opportunity, as I was saying, because if you think about it, of all e-commerce sales, 62% are sales that come through marketplaces. 62% of all sales. And so that 38% missing is the millions and thousands of websites on websites. So you're competing for just 38% of all the sales in the world, and 62% are marketplaces. And those 62%, 95% of it, which is 59% of all sales, come from the top 100 marketplaces. So 100 marketplaces cover 59% of all e-commerce sales. You have to be there, of course. You're going to be competing, of course, against a lot of sellers, but that's where all the traffic is. And just to talk about dollars, in 2020, those top 100 marketplaces that were selling $2.67 trillion, that's 12 zeros, that's a lot of numbers. And then just 2 years before that, it was 1.86 trillion. And it was not 60%, it was 52% of all global sales. I mean, so if you think about it, the jump was huge in just 2 years. So if you want to be playing somewhere online, you have to be in a marketplace, even though you may have your own website, or you can have an app and you can be selling on Facebook and on your own social media. You still have to be in a marketplace. And that's what people don't understand.
And let's talk a little bit about the position that perhaps the first movers or the bigger movers right now have. They have established base. Everybody wants to go through them. So what will be the main factors for them to keep the first place, in my opinion? And now I'm an outsider, perhaps you can confirm or correct that, is first the reliance of the information of the customer, right? If your information is not safe and there's a leak, like for example, it happened with Target some years ago, this can work. And the other item or issue that I'm seeing in the market is that some of these, let's say, service providers, all of these sellers are now kind of complaining of the abuse, sort of some of the competitor or sort of these marketplaces, right? And perhaps the decision will be based on how much margin or how much percentage of the cost is going to be shared with the marketplace, right? No, you are transferring that to the customer, but at the end, the final customer is going to see where I pay more for the same service, right? So, what would you say are the main points, the pain points that these companies need to address or kind of solve to continue and keep their leadership position right now?
For top marketplaces, as you said, first time, you have the first mover advantage. You're there, you're established, you're big, people know you, but there are a lot of risks. I mean, you have, they already have the client acquisition, the site positioning side covered. People know them, they have a lot of customers, they have a lot of sellers. But what they did is they are continually working on their supplying offering, meaning they're very strict on what sellers they want to have. Especially the ones that are the biggest ones, because what happens, especially for the ones that are pro players, but then also for big models, you are what your offers are, meaning even though you may not have the product, your sellers and how well behaved they are represent you. So if you have crappy sellers, then you're done. So you have to have the right ones. So you have to have a team that is constantly looking at that. So for example, Amazon has very strict rules on what you can do. And then they also have a TRMS group, which is the transactional risk management system. And they're the rule Nazis. They're after sellers for any type of infractions. A lot of them are automated. So the system goes and detects if they have played with, let's say, prices, and if they are getting fake customer reviews, if there are issues with a cancellation, say they don't want to actually deal with customers. There are a lot of rules. Very detailed rules, and they're very strict on that. And so you can have a customer that is selling thousands a month, and they do 1 or 2, 3 things, and the teams just pull them down, and they can close your account, and you're done. So that's very strict, and that's what a lot of customers complain. But at the same time, Amazon is dealing with not only millions of sellers, I mean, they're all over the world, but they're also people a lot of time in their hands, and you'll see sometimes you have the rules and you think you know your system, but your customers will find the cracks. And so These are people who are trying and finding things that they can actually do for their own advantage, right? And so that's why you have to have clear rules, and you have a strong team and automated rules systems to go through all the offers and make sure that your sellers are behaving. That's one thing.
Amazon biggest perhaps the asset is their reputation. They're going to compromise that for insignificant vendor.
They're like, I close you, I don't have an issue. And in fact, if I close you, I can use your data, and I'll get a product and just use it to create a white brand, a white label, and I'll sell it myself. So they're selling from batteries to diapers to all kinds of stuff. And that's what they've done. And so some people are really complaining because they have all the power. But then you have also players where they don't do that. And so they really have to make sure that the players are doing fine, right? Then you have growth gaps. Most of the established ones are already done with this. But the ones that are growing really quickly, and that happened to me in Linio, you grow so quickly, you create a team and you have an offering, you invest a lot of it in your marketing to attract demand. And so you have to have all the background synchronized. You're talking about from like payments to logistics to customer service to IT projects to making sure the marketing campaigns are really connected to the commercial side, to your offers and to your processing. So all of that, all the machine needs to be coordinated. And when you're growing too fast, which a lot of the marketplaces are doing, like Rappi and other sites, you're going to have growth process gaps. And that's where you're going to have fraud from sellers. You're going to have bad customer experience. And so some people say, grow slowly, make yourself rich slowly. I think that's what Warren Buffett told Airbnb. You want to grow slowly and get rich slowly. Because if you go too fast, you're going to have these gaps, and that's where your mind is going to drain. So you have that. Then you have, as you mentioned, IT and data issues. That's an issue in especially when you're amassing so much data from customers. You're talking about, especially if you have sites in Europe and China like Amazon, right? So you have to have a very solid IT team to make sure that all that is covered. And then the second part is, as you grow, your customers want data. And so how do you give them the data? You don't just give them Excel spreadsheets with all their numbers. You usually allow them to connect to your systems via APIs. And that's where the cracks are. Because as you start adding more things like payment processing and logistics and this and that, and you allow them to get in, you're going to find cracks, and they're going to find cracks. And so you need to have very strong teams that are after that too. Another aspect, which doesn't seem like it's an issue for e-commerce, is logistics. But it's logistics that really defines the experience. If you think about it, you're just selling online, but you haven't done anything, especially for products. You haven't done anything. You just sold a promise. So if you don't deliver, that's a big issue. I remember when I was maybe 5 years ago when I moved to Peru, and there were very few e-commerce people here because it was just starting. And we were teaching these in certain classes like Chamber of Commerce and universities. All the classes for e-commerce were about marketing and website building. And our side, our program was the only one teaching logistics, which is me. And I was like, you think you need to teach logistics for e-commerce? And they're like, no, we'll do marketing. We'll just do website design, payment processing. I'm like, no, you have to do logistics, because if you don't do this right, everything you've sold is a promise. And now with the pandemic, we have had a huge issue. I don't know if you remember, we had a huge issue because they were selling and they could not process the orders, and they were behind for months. They were canceling orders, and they had issues, and they had customer complaints in the hundreds because no one was paying attention to logistics. And so that's a huge issue. And that's what, if you think about it, the main marketplaces around the world, they have their own logistics side or team. So you have Amazon, they had FedEx and UPS and USPS, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to rely on them. I'm going to go build my own team. And they have their own warehouses, and they have their own distributors, and they have their own program. They have Amazon Logistics, and you have Alibaba Logistics, and you have all these huge team of companies, logistics companies that are born just to support the marketplaces. And you cannot just rely on someone to do it right, because that's your reputation again. So logistics is a huge issue, and it's going to be If not now, it's going to be more predominant in the next year or so. All e-commerce programs are going to be now teaching logistics, and all logistics masters, for example, are going to have an e-commerce logistics component to it, because you're not doing the same thing as the regular logistics. You're thinking about immediacy, etc.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, you can have a great homepage, a great interface. Like you said, during the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was placing orders, but they didn't have trucks. They didn't have delivery system. So you were waiting for your bucket of paint, and you got it 4 months afterwards.
It was insane. It was crazy. So it's going to be, and you have, because of that, you have then all these new companies that are just being born out of necessity on logistics, just on logistics. They're e-commerce logistics. And you have motorcycles, and you have trucks, and you have vans, and you have people on foot. You have lockers. All this is boomed in the last 2 years because of necessity. I mean, they existed before, and they were okay, and they were like, okay, we need to have someone to do it. And now we're like, oh, we need the best, and we need to have coverage, and we need to have now faster and more access to like look for our region. So it's interesting how it's all coming together. Another one, and it's not an issue for the biggest ones, but it's going to be an issue for the growing marketplaces, is web capacity and processing capacity. If you think about it, and it's an issue because the more connected we are, the more processors and the more cloud we need. And that means we need to have more capacity. And then you have Amazon, who dealt with that. They're like, okay, we're going to work with this, and created AWS, and that's their own system. But then you have then the whole energy issue, right? Thinking, oh my God, we have all these sites all over the world, but then the energy consumption and the energy emissions are huge. And so what is your green footprint, right? So how do we make that impact on what's the nature much more responsible? Because then we're more connected. So you're going to have, in the coming years, issues with countries demanding these marketplaces or these sites in general to be more ecological, because that's a lot of consumption of energy. And another one that we have in some countries, especially the ones where there's a lot of opportunity, Latin America is booming because there are not a lot of players compared to, like, let's say the States or Europe, right? Or Asia. We are on the virgin territory to go and conquer. And so if you want to go and grow your marketplace here, which is great, there's a lot of opportunity because there's a lot of customers wanting to get these products. But at the same time, there's not a lot of people with the skills to work in your company. You don't need a big team, but you need the right team. And so if you think about it, sometimes it can take 3, 5, 6 months to hire someone, because the pool is so limited of resources who know about e-commerce, who have studied or led a team in projects that have to do with IT, have dealt with logistics, IT teams, and so on, payment processing, and so on. So you may take a lot of time hiring people. And once you get them, you have to really retain them, because then someone else comes and they offer me 10% more, and they're gone. And they're gone not only with the ability you need to feel, but sometimes knowledge too.
Yep.
And so that's a huge issue. The org issue is coming, especially in these countries where there's a lot of opportunity. There is also a big gap in skills. And so that's an issue for marketplaces growing in these countries as well.
I'm flipping this around, a risk for these companies in terms of, for example, what I saw, and perhaps it's an isolated thing, you can explain more, is that, for example, Mercado Libre and some of the similar companies were having issues of putting the seller and the buyer in touch, but doing the transactions outside the platform. So therefore, no revenue. And sort of the same is happening with Facebook Marketplace. Right now, it's kind of free publicity, free advertising. They put it together. I assume that the next step for them is going to be kind of putting the same, right? Like a transaction fee on that. But how can these companies ensure that they get the revenue for the services that they are offering, right? To avoid customers cheating on them.
Yeah, I think it's more like a three-step process, which, I mean, you're totally right. That's what happened with Mercado Libre and other sites as well. I mean, Facebook right now is having the same issue. And I don't think it's so much as an issue, it's more of a strategy. How do you grow quickly? How do you
Okay.
get sellers and how do you get customers quickly when you're a marketplace and no one knows about you? And the best one is to do it free, do it for free, right? And so marketplaces like Mercado Libre in Peru, for example, when I opened the office, they can be free for years, and no one had paid a dime on them. So, and you would, I mean, since they were not charging you, you could do it online there, or you could do it outside,
Yep.
and they would charge you some commissions, but only if you needed a little more exposure. But that's how Mercado Libre in Peru became the largest website 3 years ago. They were the largest website, more than Falabella and all that stuff, because it was completely free and it was massive. And that's what Facebook is doing right now. They don't need to monetize it at this moment. They're getting all this traffic from the people, from the users, and they're converting their business model from being a social site to being a marketplace as well. Because at one point, then you have other channels like the TikToks and Instagram and all the sites that are coming up, and the new generations are not using Facebook. And so that's one way of monetize it. So you become a huge free market. And once you get all this traffic on sellers and customers, then you start putting next, which is the next step, the next rules, which is, okay, now we're gonna add a payment processing system. In this case, was Mercado Libre had the Mercado Pago site, the processing system. So you can also buy on Mercado Libre, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna force you. We're gonna force you to use Mercado Pago to pay. So we're not gonna give you any information, so you have to pay, because before you would pay for free one sol or whatever it is to get information. Now it's like, no, you have to pay everything here. And so that way you protect customers, because customers they don't have to deal with an issue with having to pay and then the seller disappearing on you. At the same time, you control the seller side doing the right thing. And so what they do is they look at transactions, I mean, huge transaction models, and see, okay, now that we've forced everyone to use my processing model, meaning via tarjetas de crédito, credit cards, right? Or afterward, like you go to pay in the bank, or you pay, via transactions and so on. Once you force them, what I do is, okay, are you offering like one sol or $1 listings for like a bicycle or a computer? Then I know you're trying to cheat the system, because what you do is you're getting a lead, and I'm not going to allow you. So they have these huge machines. They do machine learning and they do data analysis all the time, and see if the prices are way off for specific categories of their cancellations all the time. And so first step is you do it free. Second step is you put a payment method. And the third step, which if you think about it, the biggest ones already have, if you lock all that with a logistics component. And so you have Amazon, right? You have Amazon, you pay on Amazon, and Amazon delivers your package with FBA. Mercado Libre in Brazil, and Argentina, and Mexico, they have now logistics, in Chile as well. They have logistics partners that are selected, and make sure that your product, you cannot just deliver it yourself. You have to deliver it through one of my partners. And so you have to pay on the website, and you have to send it through one of my partners that make sure that the product is sent correctly to the customer. In that way, I'm not just relying on your word that you delivered it. I know, because my seller, my provider, uploaded that information on my side, and I know the product is correctly in the customer, and I'm gonna then give you the money for your product. Right. So then, if you think about it, it's free, it's paid, and it's delivered, right? Yeah. And that way you control the whole experience of the customer. And so you then control your sellers, and you control the experience, and then you protect your brand, right? The trust your customers have on you.
Linking this a little bit to risk, I'm thinking about a customer, right? I mean, perhaps in the food market, food industry is not that difficult, because basically you go to the restaurants that you know. But in the regular buying of, let's say, a T-shirt or some set of golf clubs or whatever, you go to a vendor that you don't know. So the marketplace offers you first the contact between both, but also they take off the risk that they are kind of the middleman that ensure that transaction is being made, and they are kind of the person that guarantees that, right? So if either the transaction is being takes place outside, then you lost that. Kind of the same happens with Airbnb, right? I know that in order to make an advance payment, you do it through Airbnb, but perhaps one of the, I don't know, the flaws or failures, or perhaps that's the way they want to do it, is that this transaction fee perhaps is kind of sometimes 10-15% that gives incentive to the renter and the host to do the business outside. I know you're transferring the cost to the renter, but then perhaps you do a one-time rental through the system, and then if you're going to do a repeat stay at that same location, you do it outside. So how to guarantee and to make it not a one-time transaction, but kind of do it the same? Perhaps if I have to pay 5%, okay, I'm tempted. But if I am going to pay 15% for a value that I can get outside, it's kind of an incentive for the customers to break the rules, right? I don't know what's your...
Completely right. Two thoughts on that. One is marketplaces are basically relying on volume. So if you think about commissions, people think, oh my God, 15% is a lot, but it's not really a lot. If you think about it, you're paying designers, IT, marketing, payment, logistics. You're talking about huge teams. I mean,
sure.
So people don't see that. And yes, there's some categories that are like 20% because I like fashion, but then you know that fashion has a lot of markup. I mean, they do 300, 400% easily. Mm-hmm. So 20% is not an issue. But of course, compared to 0 or free, I mean, who wants to pay more? So I totally understand that. And they're more competitive. So part of it is they have these huge markups in the minds of the consumer or the seller. But at the same time, if you think about it, there's going to be, if you do it for one time, I mean, one time you try to go around it. That's what I'm saying. Usually the marketplaces know who the sellers are and the customers are. They know. They're not going to bug you 1, 2, 3 times, but you don't do it 30, 50 times, you're done. And they black mark you. That's it. But also at the same time, you think about it. When you go to a marketplace and you're trying to cheat the system all the time, as a seller, you're going to be caught. But as a customer, you're not going to the same seller all the time. You're going to buy shoes one day, and the next day you're doing makeup, and the next time you're actually buying a toy for your cousin, and you're buying curtains, and so it's very rare for you to actually go to the same seller to do that. So you do have repeat business at the marketplace level, but not at the seller level. And so then you have systems that are going to prevent you to do that, from doing that. But I agree, there are some markups that are ridiculous. But if you think about it, what is the cost of having your own website to making sure that it's running to get traffic? So compared to that, actually, we in Amazon and in Mercado Libre, we did the exercise of comparing. Okay, how much would it be to get this much traffic on your site, paying marketing? I mean, Google Ads, right? For your keywords. How much for getting the payment processing, your credit card payment? So all these things, and when you add it up, you actually were spending a lot more, because then your funnel of traffic is much wider in a marketplace level that you do it on a transaction level. So it does make sense. It is, I mean, there are some people that are complaining, oh my God, it's a lot, but they haven't done the math on doing it in their own website and everything else. So yeah. It
is a different category of overhead, but there's overhead that make the customer possible to find the product that they wanted. Pamela, thank you so much for all this insightful information that you're giving us. Really, it's a good complement to what we have been discussing. It gives a lot of tips. I don't know if perhaps you would like to give us some final words. Honestly, it's been a pleasure. Very, very good points and a lot of expertise from your side that you have shared with us.
Thank you. Well, thanks for the invitation. Two things is, from the seller side, you have to be on a marketplace to take that opportunity, and just don't be on one, be on 3 or 5. I mean, as much as you can handle, really responsibly handle, participate, put your eggs in different baskets. You want to participate because that's what the traffic is. And on the entrepreneurial side, even though you already have the top 100 websites, marketplaces that are really doing well, there's still a lot of opportunities outside. And then just in the last year, we've seen a lot of marketplaces grow. I mean, you have Rappi, which was before, but it just bloomed. Corner Shop, which was a small site or app, just bloomed. So, and then you have ones for all these different industries. So for those entrepreneurs that are looking for opportunities, don't just think of a website. If you're thinking of a marketplace, there's a room. Of course, it's going to be a lot of work. No one gets rich, overnight, but there's opportunities. So just everywhere, just look for opportunities and see if you can turn that opportunity into a marketplace, so it can work for you.
For the small shops that perhaps are kind of like, why I'm going to share my revenue. Well, at the end of the day, it's a mass, right? You're going to win perhaps a smaller percentage of a bigger pie, and the increase of the pie is worth it.
You're getting more traffic. You're just paying for already converted traffic instead of trying to fish new customers, which are really expensive. Because you're competing against a lot of people and you're spending a lot of money in marketing.
Yeah, you're going to reach customers that you wouldn't have any.
You wouldn't get. No, you wouldn't get, and not just here in your city, but you're talking about nationwide, worldwide. So right. You could be selling to someone you would have never even met before, just because you're in a marketplace. So there's opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your insights, for sharing your expertise with us. And hopefully in our second round of Let's Talk About Risk, we can have you again to talk about other topics.
Happy to participate.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a good day.
Take care. Bye-bye.